Hey everyone, my name's Jeremy, and I'm going to update you on my progress with the Bellevue University Master of Science in Industrial Organizational Psychology program. I did my math prior to clicking start. I am in, where's my calculator? Week 26 of this program. So, what that translates to is 4 classes, 6 weeks each. I am in the fifth class, the second week of the fifth class, so 26 weeks. I'm going to look back and forth at my notes, so I apologize if you see me looking back and forth. The intent of this video is to help those that are in the program maybe get some best practices and or a head start on some of the things that they may go through within the class that I'm talking about. Of course, I won't be giving any answers because that's not fair, but at least giving you an idea of what you will experience. The last class that I took was organizational psychology, applied organizational psychology. Okay, yep. And the current class that I am in now is organizational development. So I'm going to try to make this video super quick so that way you can get back to your studying, because I know that there's a lot to do, a lot of studying to do. So tips, and I think that I said this in my earlier videos, but make sure that you get a grasp on the reading earlier in the week. What I would do is look at the week, scan the week, look at the assignments, and just kind of let it sit for a few minutes, and then start to outline what you're going to do in the week prior to your due dates, which are typically Wednesday and Sunday, but they can change throughout the course or the program, which I'm learning. What I would do is probably scan the material and then go back and read the material. And maybe even before you scan the material and go back and read the material, maybe even look at the assignments. You probably won't understand what the assignment is asking for because it can be generalized sometimes, but at least you'll know what to look for when you're reading reading the assignments. The next thing that I would do is always ask the professor, which it varies based on your professor, if they're going to do a video for the week. Some professors do, some professors don't. For those professors that have done it, I have done a lot better in their classes because I understand what they're looking for. They don't necessarily write the assignments per se, but they do, they know what they want, you know? Some of the topics that we talked about in this class are social capital, organizational volatility, employee commitment, organizational justice, and surveys. You will do a lot of surveys in this class. The one thing that I will say about surveys is really think about who's taking the survey. Will they understand what the survey is asking for? Will they have to process what the question is saying? Does the sequence of the questions make sense? Are you asking the same thing in two different questions? Just basically making your survey easy to take so that way you get the most information that you can out of it without it being skewed in a way that it wasn't intended to be skewed. So in other words, if I am a frontline employee taking a survey about employee commitment, is the question written in a way that I, as a frontline employee, not an organizational leader with 10, 15, 20 years experience, understand, right? If those questions are written in a way that you don't understand, then not only will they take the time or have to take the time to process the question, but they may not process it in a way that you intended for it to be processed. And in some cases, they may say, oh, this is too complicated, I won't take the survey, or I'll skip this question, and then your data is all screwed up. Social capital. In my own words, people, when they work together better, they trust each other, that capital of relationships is leveraged to do work better and be done in a more effective or productive way. So in other words, if my partner and I, or my peer and I, we mesh very well, we're more sociable, we recognize that we have our differences, we may be a part of different groups, but because of us setting aside our own personal agendas and recognizing that there's work to do, because we trust each other, we say, okay, let's work together. We're more productive than, let's say, a group that has less social capital. Organizational volatility. Are people quitting? Are people committed to where the organization is going? And if they're not committed to it, are they seeking employment elsewhere? That high level of turnover essentially is a symptom of something else. So how do you use surveys in a way that helps you understand what the real problem is, and how do you intervene, or what level do you intervene, and how do you intervene to have the most impact? Employee commitment, I just talked about that. Do I see value in what I'm doing? As a frontline employee, do I understand how me owning my responsibilities contributes to the bigger picture? Am I motivated in a way that makes me want to stay with the company and exceed the expectations of my role? Is my manager creating an environment that makes me want to stay and makes me want to go above and beyond? Or is my manager creating an environment that I really don't care about what's going on? I'm just here to collect a paycheck. I'm not really committed. So if there's something else that comes along, I'm probably going to take it if it's better than what I have now. And then organizational justice, which it's distributive justice, procedural justice, and there's one more justice that I cannot remember, and I'm going to keep looking until I can remember it. Distributive, procedural, and informational / interactional justice. So is the process fair? Is everybody getting the same outcome? And is everybody interacting and or the relationships fair across the board? You think about the good old boy or good old buddy system or whatever it's called. Is this process fair in that I went through the process, person B went through the process? Is it fair between, is everybody going through the same thing? And or the outcome that I got, is that fair based on what's going on? So you'll learn about that. I probably butchered that, but you'll get the point once you start studying it. This is probably my favorite class so far, because on the spectrum of IO, industrial organizational psychology, I lean more towards the O. I like the soft stuff. I don't like the job analysis and job design and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting, right? But based on who I am, what I like, my individual differences, what makes me unique, the O side of IO psychology is definitely what I lean towards. For the class that I'm currently in, organizational development, it's very interesting so far. It's all about how do you implement or interject change to increase the effectiveness of organizations. I'm trying to pull up the class now, but I'm struggling at the moment. I have my favorite professor that was a stickler about APA, so I did take time to reach out to a reference librarian to get some help with APA. Things are really starting to click, and this is the 5th class? So a year from now I'll graduate. So I got one more class to be halfway through, I think, if I'm doing my math correctly. But things are starting to click now. You're starting to really say, okay, well, there's a problem. You're observing a symptom of a bigger issue. How do you use the research that's out there to diagnose and solve for the problem? And in what way do you solve for the problem? And at what level do you solve the problem? How do you collect data in a way that helps paint a picture that people may or may not tell you, right? Quick scenario. What can I think about? Okay, so I used to work in a sales department, and if I'm not mistaken, I'll go to a different organization. I used to work in a union-based organization when I first started working, and the turnover was extremely high. The managers were just not creating the best environment, and thus people were only committed to their paycheck. So when another opportunity came to have a better quality of life outside of work and a better work experience, people would take that opportunity, right? So if I was an IO psychologist or a student or an HR professional, what would I do with the information that I have learned from this class. Essentially, what I would do is talk to stakeholders, I would do interviews, I would send out surveys, I would do observations, collect as much data as possible to then start to put together the pieces to the puzzle. You kind of sort of become a detective, right? And then once you collect your data and you start to identify some things within that data, then you say, okay, there's research out there that solves for this problem. Let me go do my research. Let me formulate a plan. Let me identify who I need to talk to, at what level do I need to intervene, how do I evaluate that plan, how do I come back and say, these are the things that you may need to change, make sure that I'm adjusting my communication to whom I'm talking to. If I'm talking to higher level executives, they want to know about the facts and the numbers. If I'm talking to frontline employees, then I may need to adjust my communication in a different way. Go do your research, come back with the solution, you figure out how to evaluate its effectiveness, and then you just sustain whatever it is that you're trying to implement in a way that will increase the effectiveness of the organization. I'm loving this organizational development class so far. You really, it's just this professor, which I love this professor, but oh my gosh, they're so challenging. You really have to have the research to back up what you are saying. If you say that the water is best served at 32 degrees, or no, I made that up, at room temperature, then you have to go and find research that says water is best served at room temperature. And if you don't do that, then your point or your thesis that you're trying to prove is null and void. So I hope that that helps. Yes, I'm learning from this program. No, I would not change my mind about enrolling into the program. The experiences that I've had with the professors range. It really just depends on the level of engagement that the professor has. Again, we all have things that are going on. But you really can get a lot out of the class. Yes, it is a lot to read. Yes, it is a lot to take in. Yes, it is a lot to soak in. Do I read all of the material? Absolutely not. Do I scan most of the material? Absolutely. Do I go through the material and make sure that I understand the concepts of what's going on to the best of my ability, depending on what I have going on in my life? Absolutely. So even if you feel overwhelmed, you're not alone. Reach out to your study groups, reach out to your professor, and you will do fine. Hopefully by the next time I do another video, I will be at the end of this class and I can give you more updates. You'll do amazing. Have a great one.